Good evening, good evening, good evening. There's no good morning, good afternoon because we are live. However you're watching, wherever you're watching, however you're listening, while you're watching, wherever you're listening, while you're watching. It's the Bet Online Salute Detroit podcast, and we have a live one today. Come on in, ask all the questions you have to ask. It's Portal Day. Who thought I would be saying it is the start of free agency in college football? Because that's all it is. We have the trio together, the Bearded Bandits, as best as ever. Madman, how are you doing this wonderful evening?
Doing well, Coach. Great to see both of you guys. We got starting live in the off season. I mean, very exciting, and seems like folks are trickling in. So always great to engage with everyone, but super excited. Feels like a new chapter of the off season.
Ride Die, my man. How are you doing this wonderful Tuesday? It's actually Tuesday.
I know. Feels weird, but great, brother. Good. It's good to, like Jamal said, be live again. We haven't been live. I think the last time we went live was you went by yourself live when Danton Lynn was hired as the DC. Or have we done one since then?
No, we went live. We went live after the Holiday Bowl.
Oh, you're right. After the Holiday Bowl. So, but no, great to be here. First and foremost, just got to at least say, Jamal Madney, the newest girl dad on the show.
Oh, that's what it ended up being?
Yeah.
Oh,
So, thank you,
club,
Ryan.
man.
We're very excited about fatherhood this year, and girl dad. So couldn't be more ecstatic.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. So the only bummer is she's spoiling our travel plans to Michigan, but we'll make do with the due dates and stuff like that. But yeah, welcome to the club, brother. Girl dads are the best.
Thank you so much.
I'm still new, Jamal, so I can't help you out.
I'm going to be hitting everybody up for the advice and the guidance for sure.
I'm still going through orientation, so call Ryan.
1-800 call Ryan. I mean, that fits too. You know, you can do a 7-character version of that, so that works really nicely.
Yeah, I'll be at Applebee's, so I'll give you
What is it? $1 rum drinks and $2 wings or something?
Yeah, and
like
2 for
that?
$20, baby. They got the 2 for $20.
So right, you gotta share with everyone what is it about Applebee's? You know, obviously, just by way of context, Applebee's is named an official sponsor of the NFL. You have been over the moon this entire afternoon, the last few hours. Just incredible joy. We've had some text messages. I'm like, this is big. I don't know why this is big, but it's big. You're fired up. You got to share why you're so excited.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, LAFB is in the neighborhood now, so that's great. But no, I mean, the Bees is great. I think it's underrated. It's an institution in America. But no, the reason why I really love it is I got married in a small town in Minnesota called Fergus Falls, 13,000 people there. There's really very few bars and restaurants. There's a couple local ones and a couple chains. One of the chains is Applebee's. And so the night of our wedding, my wife and all the ladies stayed at my grandparents' house, which is on a lake, which is where we actually got married. Me and all my groomsmen stayed at a hotel in Fergus Falls. So that night we're like, all right, we need to do something. All that was there was Applebee's. So we went to Applebee's, stayed there till it closed. The next morning, woke up, went to Applebee's for breakfast before going to the wedding, had some drinks, had some fun. And then after the wedding, the whole wedding party went back to the town to stay at the hotel. And guess what? We shut down Applebee's that night my wife in her wedding gown, me in my Sunday best. So it was a 3-for-3 Applebee's event at the Dybrid wedding. So that's why.
I'm more curious about this Applebee's breakfast. That's.
I mean, it was wings and beer. So breakfast of champions.
I got you. So free agency,
yeah.
Free agency has started. Going on USC. Ryan, don't get too upset with me, but I am not happy with USC right now about the decision they're made, and we will leave it at that. But that's a different topic for a different day. But free agency has started. We're moving forward. We lost some guys. We brought in some guys. Let's talk about the big name first that we did lose. We didn't bring anybody in yet. No, I'm sorry. Can't mess up on live. You can't edit it out. We haven't brought anybody in yet, but we did lose some guys. The biggest name we lost was Rakes. Only there 4 months, right? January, February, March, April. Only here 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Already exited out. Lincoln Riley said something about that, and when Rakes does something like that, it shows. And he says we only want people who want to be here. So 2 things about Rakes that come to mind for me. he found out Bear got a bigger bag and he wanted to match a bag that Bear got. But at the end of the day, this is a what have you done for me lately business, and you haven't done anything for me lately. You're 4 months on the job and you're asking for a raise. Doesn't work like that in the real world. Go find a new job. I mean, you're coming out of the SEC. You're going to the Big Ten. You're leaving the Big Ten. I mean, all that's left for you now is the ACC or a group of 6 school, right? So, I mean, I don't know why he did it. I don't care why he did it. I've never seen him play. So, I feel like we're better without him. Madman, what do you think about the Rakes exit?
Yeah, Fred. I mean, this is sort of the world we live in now, right? This is the new world order of college football, where you've got an Isaiah Rakes, you've got a Zamandela, you've got other individuals, Fagans. I mean, all three of the kind of notable players, and then obviously Stanley T just recently, but he's been there longer. But all three of the notable players up until today were guys that were there anywhere between 2 and 6 months, and so. This is sort of the world that we live in. We're going to lose folks. We're going to gain folks. That's just sort of the churn. And I think that the priorities of getting a bag and getting a path to the league are really the two big pillars of what these guys are looking for. And if they feel like they're not getting either one, guess what? They're open for business, because the window to be open for business always exists in this world, in this non-regulatory transfer portal world. So we're going to gain some folks. We're going to lose some folks. I think Lincoln Riley said it best. Guys that are going to want to be USC Trojans. For every one spot that's available at a place like USC, there's probably 100 guys that want every spot. So I think you just want to kind of try and create that culture of guys wanting to be here. But it's going to get more and more challenging, because that's my kind of bigger concern moving forward, is how do you maintain an allegiance to the program and to the university and just to the colors and the name on the front of the jersey when all of these other situations are sort of pulling you. So I think Rakes it's a loss. I think USC is going to fill that loss to sort of couple with Bear on the front four. But I think it's just, this is the world we live in, and we're all still trying to figure it out.
Ryan, you got anything on that?
Yeah, not much to add. I think Jamal said it. You're going to lose guys, you're going to gain guys. That's the nature. I mean, it's literally free agency, but it happens now 2-3 times a year, which is the wild part. It's not a March 14th through 16th like the NFL. It's almost year round free agency. But yeah, and the only thing I'll add is to Jamal's point, this isn't a USC problem per se. This is a college football problem. And you see that report coming out. Maybe it's been a few days now, but that Ohio State spent $34 million this season for their coach, for their staff and players. And the indication before that was like, oh yeah, if you can kind of spend 15, 20, you're in national title contention. And it's like, how is that sustainable? Like, there's USC's NIL is improving. They've got great donors, obviously. The collectives are getting better. They're unifying a little bit, but I mean, 34 million is a ton of cash. So, I mean, it changes recruiting a bit. You obviously have to have your coaching staff fully involved and invested in NIL and open-minded to that, and knowing that, hey, we need this kid, make it happen. We need the money. But it also makes you kind of recruit kids that are like, maybe lesser in the stars, but higher in the, and I don't want to call it character, because I don't want to bring that up at all, but just higher in the, I want to be at SC because of the coaching I'm getting. And hopefully that, that's the way you kind of have to play it. But I mean, we're in an uncharted territory, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those, I don't want to badmouth the kid at all, but Rakes wasn't really here. We didn't see him much. So on to the next. And now we're in the portal, and they're going to add a 1 or 2 or 3 defensive linemen now. So we're on to those guys now.
Yeah. I'll badmouth them for you. At the end of the day, it's not going to work. Like, I mean, we just have to be realistic. Like, I understand, and I said this in the past, right? And we're going to talk about a guy, the portal. He needed to go to the portal, right? And if you're lost in the wash and you're falling in the depth chart with guys coming in, the portal's for you. But if you're jumping the portal, going from team to team looking for money, the portal's not for you. Like, you're not helping yourself become an NFL athlete. You're not getting any film. You're not getting anything done because you're never in one place. Why, as an NFL team, would I be like, all right, so when this guy's contract comes up, he's going to ask for a ridiculous amount of money, and he's not worth it, and he's just going to jump a team. So I don't think that way of going about the portal is a good idea. Maybe I'm still old school in a way. I'm all for NIL, but I just think the portal should be for you to get an opportunity somewhere else. And jumping around in the portal looking for money is not a proper way to use the portal, in my opinion. And I could be wrong. You know what I mean? But that's just how I feel about the portal. But
Coach, it's interesting that you mentioned that, and I'm with you because I think we're all more purists, just kind of, I think, given our age, given our memories and relationships with USC and what have you, just to play devil's advocate. Think about Bear Alexander for a moment, right? What, 6 schools in 7 years when you add up high school as well? So, and now he got the bag, right? So to your point, hey, this isn't a strategy to keep portal hopping year after year after year. Well, it's kind of worked for Bear. You know, he sort of hopped 1 year. So I actually think, Fred, this is going to become more of the norm. You know, I was joking with some friends, earlier in the week. And, when you talk about the intro to Sunday Night Football and all the guys kind of say who they are and where they went to school, like, are we even going to be allowed to do that intro anymore? Because, like, each guy's going to have 5 schools and you're not going to be able to get it done in like a half an hour, So this is sort of the world that we are in. And I think it just comes down to the individual case of how good you are and where do you fit on that team in terms of depth chart and that team's need at your position. And, perhaps it's also a matter of timing. If Rakes jumped prior to Bear jumping, does Rakes get the bag? If SC knows that, hey, we got Bear saved and locked up, do you get a certain amount as a result of that? So it's very interesting. I'm with you, but to your point, in one case it hasn't worked, but in another case, same behavior worked for Bear. So I do think it's going to come down to more of the individual athlete in that circumstance.
Yeah, and that's why I said maybe I'm old school in the thought of it. You know what I mean? So like I can't fathom that. Like me being a SoCal kid, me living so close to USC, me always wanted to be at USC. Give me 50 G's a year. I'm happy. I'm at SC. You know what I mean? Like, but it may be the age, it may be the purist in me, it may be just the different generations, how we are more loyal to the aspect of the university than we are of our own, I guess, self-need, I guess you would say. So like that's just where I am on it. But moving forward, we could talk about, I'm gonna mess his name up. Zambola?
Zandamela, Jason?
Zandamela entered the transfer portal, offensive lineman, also there for 4 years. And this one,
he was 4 months.
Yeah,
4 months.
Yeah.
4 months. I'm sorry.
I was like, if he was there for 4 years, I'm
quick.
really getting old, man.
4 months.
Dog years. 4 dog years.
This one is kind of tough because I don't know the situation, and the reports came out is that he had to go home and take care of family. And I'll just put it like this: if it's illness, I 100% understand. I get it. Like, go take care of your family, do what you have to do. Hopefully he goes somewhere and he gets a degree. Hopefully he still gets an opportunity to play. Coaching at the level that I coached on, I've been in a situation so many times where kids left school because they had to go help home. They left college to go get a job. And we always said, stay in college so you could get a better job and you could really help your family. If he had to leave USC and playing college football to go get a job, I feel like that is selfish on his family because there's nothing a kid between 18 and 24 can do to help you with their job as far as financial reason. Now, if he opens a business, okay, let's take all the outliers out. He hits the lotto, opens a business, somehow comes up on some type of money. I get that 100%. There's nowhere he could work right now where he can help you financially. Now, he can get into a trade and eventually he will make that money. I'm all for trades. But right now, as a kid, there's nothing you can do. And I feel like families who do that are selfish. Like I said earlier, though, sickness, do what you have to do. Hopefully everything gets right and you get an opportunity to come back. But if it's financial, I'm a little bit against that. And I hate when that happens to kids. And I feel so bad if that did happen to him, because you're putting him in a very unprecedented spot. But I do wish nothing but the best for him. Let me start there. I wish nothing but the best for him, and I hope he gets an opportunity to finish his college career and not live with any regrets. Ryan, what do you have on that one?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know for sure. So, but my thought would be he just wants to play closer to home for those same family situations. So, I mean, he'll get offers probably from Florida State, from Miami. I mean, he's from Clearwater. So,
Okay.
Georgia might. So I don't know. There could be other things. But based on, I haven't heard any of that. So I would assume it's more just he wants to be close to home to be able to help, but also still play. And obviously he'll get NIL, so there'll be money coming in. But he could play, in Florida, I don't think they're as good as USC, but those are still very good institutions that he can be close to home. So, that's the risk you take when you recruit out of state, especially cross country, right? And and this is what we'll get to when we talk about incoming. We'll see kids enter the portal that are from SoCal that want to play. They decide they want to play closer to home that probably will come to USC. So it works both ways. And so I think it's more just a case for that where, he decided, I just want to be closer to home, and he couldn't be pretty much any farther outside of Hawaii than he was. So, or maybe I guess UW would have been a little farther, being Florida to UW, but yeah, that's about it.
So he's still going to play. He just wanted to be closer to home.
I think I haven't heard otherwise. Have you heard anything, Jamal? I haven't heard. I think it was more.
No, yeah. I mean, I haven't heard it. I mean, Coach. I mean, this is the number one offensive lineman prospect in the class of 2024. So he's going to play at some point. And so I think it's just a matter of, I think being closer to home, I think is sort of the logical choice here. And I think we're seeing that. I mean, here's the interesting thing, right? Like, we're seeing that with companies too across the board, where employees want to be closer to where they went to school, where they grew up, and kind of the willingness to travel to go, work somewhere actually has gone down in a considerable way. There's all of this sort of like local hiring that's going on with a lot of companies. And that's kind of how we have to start thinking about college football programs now, because these guys are getting paid. So these guys are sort of more employees than student athletes at this particular point in time. And so the same kind of employee model works here, where oftentimes you want to be closer to home. You want mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and uncles and aunties watching you play. You want to sort of feel a sense of community when you're competing at the highest level of your age group. And so oftentimes that's the case. And as Ryan said, we're probably going to see an influx of kids from California that want to come in. We're probably going to see an outflux of kids that aren't from California going out. And that's also where that balance is so important, where it's really important to kind of have that national footprint. But that's why you got to kind of own SoCal. You sort of have to build that wall around SoCal, because in the long run, your retention is probably going to be higher with those kids staying for a more foreseeable future.
Well, and last thing I'll say on that, sorry to jump in, but this happens.
No, you're good.
It just happens with even just non-athlete students, right? Like, how many kids did we know? I didn't go back, but I was one of the out-of-state kids. But how many kids from high school, like, oh, I'm going to go out of state, and 1 year later they're back home going to the local school? Like, I knew kids from my high school class that went to University of Arizona, that went to USC even, and all of a sudden a year later they were at Colorado Boulder because they want to be closer to home. So it's not just an athlete thing. It's just student. You're 18, you want to go experience the world, and then you realize, yeah, I miss being close to home. So I wasn't one of those, so I can't relate, but many are.
One of my good friends from college, she actually went to Penn State her first semester of college, and then her second semester she was at SC. Like, so I get what you're saying, but
did either of you guys, have you ever heard the name Jeff Withey, basketball player? He played at UW or University of Arizona, and then he went to Kansas. He was on the Kansas national championship team.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So his freshman year at University of Arizona, my good friend from high school, they were roommates, and then they both transferred the next. He went to Colorado Boulder, and Withey went to Kansas.
Oh, no way! That's awesome.
Random, yeah. Anyway,
so let me play devil's advocate to that. What if he gets drafted to the Chargers or the Rams?
Yeah, I mean, and then you gotta be there. Yeah.
There's some things that it's just some things that you have to think about. Like, I don't know, and I get it. He's young and he probably needs that. And homesick is real. I've seen people get homesick. I've seen kids get homesick. So, well,
oh, look at that, Jeff Rodriguez, my sister-in-law, dates Jeff Withey with Horizon High in San Diego. Look at that small world.
It's amazing.
So
amazing.
No,
we promise we did not plant that. Okay, that was about as organic as it gets.
I went to Snooze the breakfast eatery in downtown San Diego with Jeff Withey and my buddy when they were visiting San Diego. That's funny.
There you go.
Look at that.
So let's move on forward. We lost a long-time Trojan.
Jeff also wants us to really, really emphasize dated, not dates. We don't want anyone to get in trouble. So, Jeff, I appreciate that.
We lost a long-time Trojan. He's there. This was being his 4th year, correct?
Who are you?
Yes.
Stanley.
Who were you talking about? Stanley T?
Stanley T, yeah.
Okay. I'm like, I know what road. I didn't know what road you were going down there.
No, we're not talking. We're not talking about the juice. We're not talking about the juice. Even though RIP juice, I'm a juice fan. Just to let you guys know. But anyway, neither here nor there. Stanley T, I'm looking it up right now. It looks like he was there 3 years. This would have been his.
Yeah, he's a grad transfer. Yeah.
Yeah. So he played 4 years there. Entered the portal as a grad transfer. This is when I say, okay, look, he was there 4 years. Look at that stat. He's played 31 games in 4 years, right? I mean, he got lost in the wash, right? He wants to finish his college football career. He maybe wants to get some film and get a chance to play in the NFL. This is somebody who really, I feel, needs to enter the portal, right? He probably wasn't going to play very much this year. He got penciled in as a backup. He made the decision, like, I'm going to go somewhere else and finish off my career somewhere else and give an opportunity for me to go to the NFL. Portal for this reason, I love it. Maybe he is chasing a bag. I don't know. But I mean, didn't play a lot. 31 games, 4 years. Didn't play he played all 12 games last year, had 7 sacks. It's not so much, I don't want to say it so bad. How do I say this, Jamal? Help me out. It's not a terrible loss, but it's a loss because he is a 4-year Trojan, and he probably has a degree from USC. What's the best way to put that, Jamal? Help me. Be my thesaurus here.
Yeah, no, Coach. I mean, I hear you. Sometimes it's not about the on-the-field loss. Sometimes it's about off-the-field loss. And I think to your point, Stanley T., look, I think you're going to get that production from other individuals, and you know you're going to be able to cover it up. Having said that, he had moments. I mean, over the course of his career, that game at Utah a couple of years ago comes to mind. I mean, he was instrumental down the stretch there in terms of just battling, and he was making some huge plays in the red zone. I remember SC almost pulled that game out. Stanley T had a big part to do with that. He was a very energetic guy, high wire guy, had some big moments in the Victory Bell game a couple years ago as well. So, you know, obviously I think there's an opportunity for him to play elsewhere, but I think where SC could potentially miss him more is off the field from a leadership standpoint and in the locker room. You know, I think sometimes when you have too many of these one and done guys, you know, sometimes you need some of those glue guys for continuity. And I think a lot of college football programs are going to have to start thinking like college basketball programs as well, right? Where it's like you have all of these sort of one and dones on a team. You need 1 or 2 guys in your top 7, top 8 rotation that have been there 3-4 years that are a glue, that are a continuity, that provide culture, that provide stability. And Stanley T kind of served as one of those guys, especially given all the turnover that's taking place, particularly on the defensive line with the new coaching staff, the new philosophy, and the new regime. So I think as long as there's an acknowledgement that void needs to be, you know, met by someone else, is this an opportunity for Bear to kind of step up more now into a leadership role? He kind of got the bag, you know, with greater power comes greater responsibility, as they would say on Spider-Man. Is this an opportunity for Bear? Is this an opportunity for a Gentry? Is this an opportunity for a Jameel? Not in terms of on the field, but in terms of taking that leadership slack. I think that's what I'm looking for. But again, wish Stanley T really well. I think he's got 1 more year of eligibility. Why not? Go out, max out, see what you can do, and get an inside track opportunity into the NFL. Find an opportunity where that depth is a little bit lacking. You can come in, make an immediate impact.
Ryan, you got anything on that?
No, I think Jamal said it great. So, wish him the best. Definitely, you know, you missed that. You know, he was such an infectious guy. Personally, I think last year he had that fumble recovery touchdown late in the game, which the team was like, you can tell when guys are glue guys when the entire bench and sideline is just so fired up when something like that happens. And so That was a really cool moment. So that's one, as the ones Jamal mentioned, ones that I'll remember for him, his career at USC. So wish him nothing but the best.
Yeah. So moving forward, we're going forward. We got some spots to fill. There's spots to fill on both sides of the ball, right? Apparently we need more depth now on the defensive line. We need a little bit more depth on the offensive line. But I think we need another running back. And I know you might be like, but I think, and I'm talking to my friend, he knows all about Lincoln Riley's system. We should have him come on one day because he could get real in depth into Lincoln Riley's system and talk about it. He came on like when I first started the show 2 years ago, and when Lincoln Riley first came, and he like got really in deep into him.
I remember that episode. Yeah, it was like your second episode ever.
Yeah. He feels that Lincoln Riley's system works better with 3 running backs that are really good instead of 2 or 1. And he gets all into it. Like he studies that. He's a really, really smart dude. Like it sucks that he doesn't want to go to college or pro. He's happy like coaching high school. So it's kind of disappointing. But I think we need one more running back for Lincoln Riley's system to work on offense. The question is, how big of a running back do you get? You know what I mean? We got a guy from Mississippi State. We got Quentin Joyner, right? Not Quentin Joyner. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's Quentin Joyner.
Peterson. Yep.
Yeah.
And Amarion.
And okay.
Jamal's
so
guy.
Amarion Peterson, right. We got a youngster. So 2 youngsters and we got a transfer guy. Is it worth it? And that's where I was going. So you guys kind of helped me out. See, that's why we're such a great team. Is it worth it to go get a developed guy, or do you continue to build and go get a guy, which I think there already is a commitment running back, right? If I'm not mistaken, Ryan. So do you wait? Go ahead.
I was just they have Brian Jackson in this 24 class, so freshman.
So yeah. So my question is, do you wait for him to come in and you just continue this build right now? But then you have to think about what Jamal says. The window is closing, so you have to react. So how do you guys feel about maybe one more running back to make this system work? I'll start with you, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird now, right, too? Because it's like, okay, where do they allocate cash, like NIL cash? And so for me, like I wouldn't allocate any more to the running back position. I wouldn't be opposed to them adding another one for sure. You never know what injuries are going to occur. I mean, we saw it 2 years ago when you lose, your starting running back, like what that means and how that can affect your team. Now, I think with Woody Marks, with Joyner, with Amarian, they're pretty solid, those 3. Plus they have a couple other, younger guys. And I mentioned the 24 recruit. So I think they're okay. I wouldn't allocate any more cash to the transfer portal, but I don't know if they'll think differently or they will. And I wouldn't be like opposed to it. And we'll get into that also before we finish up. But to me, it's D-line, O-line, and then I think receiver. They'll add another receiver for sure. Those are like the 3 prime positions, and then after that is just kind of like gravy adding.
I got you. I will say this: when Travis Dye went down, they didn't lose a step because they had big number 6 Austin Jones there running that power.
Fellow Stanford Cardinal, right? So
running that power. That's all I'm saying. Jamal, how do you feel about it, about the whole running back situation?
Yeah, I agree with Ryan, and I think that Jaquavius Marks, it all depends on how much faith you have in Jaquavius Marks and the 2 younger guys in Joyner and Amarion, because while I understand the point of Lincoln Riley and multiple backs, and you want to kind of have flexibility. And I think that argument kind of stems from the fact that he runs a very flex air raid, let's call it, right? He's going to run an air raid more dependent on his personnel than he is going to have a set system and then force the personnel to fit the system. He's going to sort of adapt the system to his personnel. And I think that's what makes Lincoln Riley a very special offensive mind and a special play caller in that regard. But I think if you look at usage rate and you look at utilization over the years, the data and the evidence suggests that Lincoln Riley's kind of a lead back guy. When you think about even at SC last year, it was Lloyd. It was Lloyd's kind of team. And we were talking about it game 3, game 4, like, hey, I want this to be the game that Lloyd gets the 15 to 20 carries moving forward and is unquestioned RB1. And one of the critiques last year was Lloyd didn't get the ball enough, even though he was so effective. But he was clearly the most utilized back last year. 2 years ago was Travis Dye. When you go back to OU, even with Lincoln Riley, the likes of the P-Lines and the others of the world, there was a very clear lead back in the Lincoln Riley system. So if you believe Jaquavius Marks is this year's Lloyd, and you've got some younger guys coming in to sort of fill in the gaps and be kind of spot guys on plays with some explosive plays, I think you have what you need here. I agree with Ryan. I think the two glaring needs moving forward right now are in the trenches. I think it's offensive line and defensive line. I think you need to go get two guys, I would say, in each of those areas. I think two offensive linemen and then two guys, both interior and edge, I think, but really kind of that front four is where you want to prioritize. And then you got to kind of have an honest conversation with Deuce Robinson and say, Deuce, what do you want to do this year? Is it baseball or football? And then depending on that answer, then I think the third responsibility is at the wide receiver spot. But that's where I would kind of go pecking order. I think they're going to be fine at running back. Having said that, I think if there's kind of a generational talent that sort of pops in the portal that can really kind of transform Lincoln Riley's offense this year, particularly with assuming Miller Moss is going to be the starter and Moss is sort of a less mobile guy. I mean, still a very good athlete, but he's not Caleb Williams. So if you find a guy that just blows off the page in terms of athleticism to complement with Moss, maybe that changes the calculus a bit. But other than that, I think it's really O-line, D-line, having the conversation with Deuce, and I think running back falls a little bit below the line in terms of priorities, especially where you are in the offseason. This is the second transfer portal window, so I think you got to be really focused on what you need at this point.
Jamal, just to help you out, Deuce Robinson's hitting 167. He's 1 for 6 at the plate. So it looks like he's a football player.
We don't need another wide receiver. I mean, he's going to play football.
When he did, interestingly enough,
at practice, right? Yeah.
Yeah, today at practice, he skipped the baseball game to be at spring practice. So,
I always think whenever someone gets a little critique for baseball, I always think of the Jim Rome line on Space Jam back in the day, original Space Jam.
Yes.
He's talking about Jordan. He's like, baseball bat. Give this guy a tennis racket, So we might be in the tennis racket phase of Deuce Robinson's baseball career.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's how that goes. All right. So what do you guys think? Right. So we know offensive line. We know defensive line is where it needs to be, and we're saying another receiver. Who do we go get? So now the guy for Kent State, who we know he's chasing the money, right? He's the top defensive lineman in the transfer portal right now. I don't remember his name. Forgive me, guys. I'm not great with names.
CJ West, you're talking about?
Yeah, I believe so. Top defensive lineman in the portal. He's he had like 7 sacks or something like that. Is it worth going to get him? This is why, and I say yes, this is why. I don't think we have enough next level talent on the defensive line right now. Hear me out. Our youngsters have potential to be next level talent on the defensive line. But if we were to play right now, we only have Bear. You know what I mean? And the rest of them is in a learning process. I think we need another next level talent on the defensive line, and then backed up with our depth makes us really good. I just don't think we have that. I think we have to go get somebody like that. The question is, which he probably is he chasing the money, or does he want to play at a bigger school? I will say 60-40, money, playing at a bigger school. What do you think, Jamal?
Yeah, Fred. I mean, I think, again, this is sort of the world that we're living in. You got to draw the economics curve, right? It's like, how good is this guy at what price? It's sort of price per performance. Like we talk about, PFF as sort of, there's got to be like a PFP metric now, price for performance. That's kind of what it's become moving forward. CJ West, I think, fits very nicely into what USC needs, to go opposite Bear. Ryan, I believe he's 315. I mean, big kid. You're kind of classic interior defensive lineman, 20 tackles, 2 sacks, forced fumble, kind of scratching the surface also in terms of potentially who he could be, smaller school in the right scheme. Can you imagine kid 315 raw with a lot of tools and a lot of experience now under the tutelage of Eric Henderson? that feels really nice moving forward. I think there's the kid out of Louisville, Jermaine Lowell also. He's 290. Another kid that kind of fits really nicely. 4 years, one more year of eligibility. He's got some injury concerns, though, over the last 4 years. Been kind of in and out of the lineup, so durability becomes important. But I think that's the type of player that you're targeting. And it comes down to, hey, how much more do I have in my budget? And, this is clearly a need, but I would start at the defensive line position as my number one priority, because I agree with you, Fred. When you talk about the Justice Terrys and you talk about the Isaiah Gibsons and you talk about all the flash that has been this offseason with Eric Henderson and DeAnton Lynn, a lot of that is class of 25. What are you going to do in 24 really on this interior? Because you got guys on the outside, in this sort of hybrid defensive end linebacker situation. You got the Jamils, you got the Gentrys, you got Cobb. Now how do you sort of just solidify that interior just so when Bear does get double teamed and really get focused on, you still have a presence to be able to move the line of scrimmage? That was one of the concerns last year. Bear kind of started like gangbusters and kind of ended strongly. But in the middle of that season, when folks kind of really teed up on him and focused and, really put a concentrated effort on some double teams and some shifts, it really was a bit of a struggle to sort of get any sort of pressure. So you want to have that other anchor to balance Bear out. And looks like this kid from Kent State, looks like this kid from Louisville is a starting point.
What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like the Kent State kid. The other one that I just did not repeat everything. The other one I like as a potential fit is Joshua Harris at Ole Miss. When you look at just size 325, 6'4", 325, it gives you, obviously just a massive human being. And, he comes from, a bigger school. And so there's been some pedigree there. He's from North Carolina. So it goes back to that, like, coming all the way across country. What does that look like? But, if he's already hitting the portal, maybe he's looking for something like that to get away. I'm seeing, and Logan Dow, appreciate you always commenting, mentioning.
I just
Dominique
looked him up.
Orange.
Dominique Orange, 6'4", 335.
Yeah,
Yep.
massive. I'm not sure
I'm looking at his
in the portal yet, right?
I don't know, but I'm looking at his highlight film, and this big dude can run. I haven't seen a big dude run like that in a long time. This dude can go. This dude is good. So if he's in the portal,
As of now, I haven't seen it like official. He's still on the Iowa State roster, to my knowledge. But I mean, this Logan, to your point, and Logan is, very. We see your comments all the time. We always appreciate. We know how invested you are in USC. So you might, be ahead of something that I haven't seen yet. Just doing the show, but. That would obviously be a tremendous fit. I mean, 6'4", 335, but like I mentioned, Harris 6'4", 225. But this is definitely a position that SC not only needs to do, but they will add. Like, it will absolutely happen. I mean, this is Eric Henderson's kind of shining moment, because Jamal and Al, you'll be able to run better. But when he joined, obviously, after the Rams lost, the portal was closed at that point, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't able to. He's obviously been on the recruiting trail. But this will be his first portal moment, and ready to see this guy cook, because this is, to me, and no disrespect to Stanley T, but guys like Isaiah Rakes, to me, it's like they weren't Eric Henderson's guys. So he's like, yeah, let him go, whatever, no need to pay him. He was very clear that he wanted Bear. I mean, we know that he wanted Bear, so Bear was his guy, and now he can go get more of his guys. They're going to fit. When you look at, and we talked about this a little bit, Al. When we recorded a couple days ago, when you look at Eric Henderson's defensive lines, he always had that big body nose tackle next to Aaron Donald. When you look at Greg Gaines, when you look at Sebastian Joseph Day, when you look at some of these big guys. And so we know that will be a type of player. And obviously DeAnton Lynn, we saw that last year with Jay Toya at UCLA. So someone like a Dominic Orange, if he does truly hit the portal, like a Jacob Harris, or like a Harris, from Joshua Harris from Ole Miss, like that, like the CJ from I'm just saying too many names now, from Kent State.
CJ
all
West,
would be great fits. So I'll stop talking there. They would all be great.
So how do I put this? It gets weird, right? Because how do you say it? I'll say it like this: we're the prettiest girl at the prom right now. no matter how you put it,
Thanks, man.
we're the prettiest girl at the prom right now. People want
Thanks for noticing.
Yeah.
People want to go. We're not. I shouldn't say the prettiest girl at the prom, but we're the prettiest girl to ask the prom. SC's on the trail hard, and they're like, "You want to do this? Let's do this." Right? We got the right people in place and have everything done. The question is, it starts to get to how much of the truth can they handle, right? And I've been in this situation before. Hey, coach, you think I'm a pro? No, you're not a pro. How many people you think walked into Anderson's office? Hey, coach, you think I could play in the NFL? Not right now. You're not good enough. And it turns into being mean, right? But at the end of the day, if that Interlock SC kind of gives you a call, don't you kind of entertain it, right? Like, but let's be realistic right now. Like, and I could be wrong, and I could be crazy, but if SC or Alabama calls you right now, who are you giving a little bit more attention to, right? I think it would be SC, and it's not even any bias behind it. Alabama's kind of fall behind in the NIL game. They never really paid attention to it. You know what I mean? But the problem is, does it end up like Colorado? You know what I mean? Like, do you bring all these kids in and it doesn't work out? That's my biggest fear. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't work out, and then we won't lose. We won't only win 4 games, but it's like, man, we keep going to this portal, and next thing you know, every Sunday, me and Jamal's gonna be pissed off because like you're not bringing in SC kids. You got to understand what SC is for SC to work. So I know we're attractive right now, but our attractiveness can't be a downfall to the program. Our attractiveness has to help the program. Like, we can't feel like we're better than everybody else, even though we're kind of at the top of the pinnacle right now. Does that make sense to you guys, or you guys just think I'm talking crazy? You guys are giving me like this blank look, like this dude's lost his mind.
No, I know.
No, Fred, I mean, I think to sort of be a little bit more specific, like for a Dominique Orange, for instance, right? And I think that was such a great suggestion. He's not quite in the portal, but to Ryan's point, you have to be very targeted with your bets. You have to sort of be very intentional with your bullets. A guy like Dominique Orange fits a need. He's clearly a guy that schematically is something that Eric Henderson has done before, to Ryan's earlier point about kind of the complement with Aaron Donald and SJD and others with the Rams. And then third, given who you're playing next year, given the style of play, it really can potentially alter the trajectory of your season. So for somebody like that, 6'4", 335, I mean, Dominique Orange could be responsible for a win and a half next year. I mean, just, in the right situation when you pair him with Bear Alexander. So in that regard, you kind of have to put the full court press for a kid like that if he's going to hit the portal. Now, do you do that for every kid, Fred, to your point? I think you have to sort of vet it and say, like, where's our need? How much is this kid better than what we already have? And, what's the likelihood that the kid's going to stay for a longer period of time? And I think if you get 2 out of those 3 things, that's sort of one pitch. I think if you get all 3 of those things, that's a totally different pitch. So I don't know if it's kind of just this blank canvas, right? I mean, using your analogy, if you really are the prettiest girl at the dance, you can filter, like you don't have to say yes to everybody, right? So you can sort of, figure out what it is that you're looking for. So I think it's very important to be intentional and very important to be strategic here. And I think somebody like a Dominique Orange fits so much about what Eric Henderson's doing that if he does hit, I think you really got to give yourself a chance. Here's the other piece. And I think this is something that isn't being talked about, but I'm going to bring it up anyway, just because of human nature. It's rare, whether you're talking about football or life or professional career, when somebody says, or a relationship, when somebody says, I want out, and then you sort of, figure out a way to make it work, chances are that person is going to find their way out at some point anyway. Right. And that's a little bit of my concern also with Bear, to be honest with you. Opened up the bag, had the conversation. He's here. But it wouldn't shock me that if, in a week, 10 days, he decides, nah, actually, I want out. The money enough isn't a loan and I want out. So you got to think also about the likelihood of Bears staying. As crazy as that is, I'm not saying this off of insider knowledge or what have you. I'm just saying this off of life experience. When somebody wants out of something, you can sort of have the reconciliation moment, but then more often than not, 70, 80% of the time, they leave anyway. And so that you also have to think about what's the likelihood we're going to keep Bear longer term and then bring in, some depth pieces as well. So I think there's a lot that you have to sort of consider, but you got to be very intentional with your filters.
Yeah. So switching, do you have anything on that, Ryan, or can we switch over to offensive line?
No, switch it up. Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah. So switching over to offensive line, we got the fulfill offensive line, and using 24/7. That's the source we're using just to look at all these transfer portal. Orange is not in the transfer portal as of right now. So if that's just something murmuring out there, hopefully it does work and they'll go get him. Hopefully we don't tamper. But if that's be worth it going to get. Looking at these guys, these are all 2-3 stars guys. The only 4-star guy is the guy that we lost. There's nobody in the portal right now I feel is worth going to get. Right? Like, who at this point, I feel like we should wait because there's one more portal time in the summer, correct, Ryan? If I'm not mistaken.
I don't think so.
I think this is it.
Yeah.
This is the last one.
Yeah.
All right. I thought it was 3. I thought it was 3 for some reason.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, so it's the end of the season and then it's this one.
Yeah.
Okay. There's nobody worth going to get in the portal right now. According to 24/7, there's nobody in the portal worth going to get. 3-star athletes don't win you championships. I understand you could build, but if we want to do it, we need to go do it right now. 3-star is not right now. We have to wait on the offensive line, unfortunately. And that's just what I see. If
I'll just say, like, what I would add to that is, so Zamandela, obviously, great recruit. The ceiling was high, but he wasn't, by all indications, wasn't going to start this year. So the starting O-line is intact, but they will need to add for depth, and that depth isn't going to cost you a ton. So, they'll still add someone, I think, and they need to, because we saw last year what happened when guys got injured and then you got shuffling and whatnot. So there's guys out there, I think, that have experience at least they can add. But no, to your point, you're not adding a guy right now, in my opinion, that's going to come in and start and be like a game-breaking interior guard or tackle. So it's more for depth, in my opinion, at the moment.
Yeah. What do you think, Jamal? Like, I know we need an offensive lineman, but there's not anyone like. If it's for depth, I get it. You know what I mean? But they have to understand that, and they need to understand what they're coming for. You know what I mean? But that's
Absolutely
hard. Now we're playing that game, and we're not getting that commitment. They could be gone at the end of the season. You know what I mean? But that's the world we live in, right? Go ahead, Jamal. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, not at all, Fred. And I think that's kind of the offensive line philosophy right now, given where we are in the season and given the roster and given what's available. I think you're almost playing kind of the quantity game a little bit this year than you are maybe the quality game, and rather than saying, hey, I want to get one guy that's, we were seeing on the chat, Bryant, the kid who ended up transferring to Washington, that would have been a nice piece that I think had the opportunity to compete for a starting job. If you find somebody like that in the next 10, 12 days, then absolutely. I think you have to sort of really prioritize somebody like that. Short of someone that's going to be a credible starter, what you want to bring in is 2 or 3 guys just for depth to be able to compete, push guys in the event of injury, and sort of do it more by committee. Because I think that's going to be the big question here. SC's going to, we know they're loaded at the skill positions. We have a lot of belief in Miller Moss. We have a lot of belief in Maeva. We know, what the linebackers are bringing to the table. We know what a Bear is bringing to the table. There's a lot of depth in that secondary. We've talked about it, with everyone who's come in, the likes of Beavers, others, Branch, so on and so forth. This thing is really going to come down to offensive and defensive line. Interior offensive line, interior defensive line is going to be the difference between this being an 8-win team, this one being a 12-win team, this one being a 10-win team, so that's really where we're playing. So I think from an offensive line standpoint, you have to sort of prioritize. If I can get a starter quality, if someone who jumps in, I got to pounce on that. Short of that, I got to sort of bring in a couple of depth pieces. it's an interesting prisoner's dilemma game a little bit, Fred, to your point, because you don't want to wait too long and not get anybody. At the same time, if you go in and you sort of pluck 2 or 3 guys that are backups, and then some blue chip kid shows up, and maybe you allocated your budget on these 2-3 kids when you could have used that same amount to go get a really good kid. So there's a little bit of a delicate dance that's being played. So I would expect SC to slow roll this a little bit, because the chances of you getting a guy who's a rotational piece is going to be more and more. I think you wait a couple days, see who's going to jump in, and then kind of do a full court press. So I wouldn't expect a lot of noise at offensive line this next 3 or 4 days. I would wait. I would expect SC to wait, get to a closer window, and then realize, okay, this really is the talent base that we're dealing with in the portal.
So you're saying press the defensive line right now, but the offensive line, just because it's a quantity thing,
just because of personnel,
value.
Yeah.
I could see that. That makes sense. I will say this: moving over to receiver, looking at this receiver list, they are loaded. They're loaded. They're going to have to be careful what they do. Go ahead.
Real quick, last point I want to make on O-line is.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ryan.
No. I didn't need to add much more, but I was just going to say, when you look at the roster, it is such a young O-line.
Yeah.
So it gives you a little flexibility that you can add a 1-year player that is just a depth piece 1 year, because I think they're, all indications are they're pretty set for the next 2 to 3 years, because it's all redshirt freshmen and sophomores. So that gives them, they don't have to add a guy that oh man, we need this guy to stay for 3 years. They get a grad transfer that just comes in for this year and then goes off. So that just wanted to add that.
And that's Ryan, to that point, you don't have to worry about geography then, right? Because if it's a 1 year, it's a 1 year rental. You're like, well, he's coming in for a purpose, so we can get him from anywhere.
That's a very great point, Ryan. That's a good job. That's why you're here. That's why you're the
we're
founder.
Team, baby. We're
that's
team.
That's why you're LAFB right there. That's
now
we
are
the shirt, baby.
Easy.
It's the shirt, Jamal. That's what it is.
It's the shirt. It's Ryan, but there's something special about that shirt today. So
it's feeling good. It was a warm day. It was a nice summer LA day.
It's the shirt, definitely. All right, so receiver is loaded. But as we learned, and this is a great test for Lincoln Riley. As we learned, a great receiver at one program does not make a great receiver in his program. And we saw that firsthand last year with Singer, right? Mm-hmm. Receiver is something, if you want to go get another receiver, you have to press them. You have to pay them a lot of money. But this legit has to be the right guy. You know what I mean? Because he could be gone in a season. Which, I know this is a game we're playing now, but this has to be the right guy, because you could bring in a kid and it just might not work, and you'd be like, damn, what happened to him? I guarantee you Singer will be great next year. Wherever he goes, he's probably in a system that fits. I guess I'm saying this. If we bring in a receiver, he has to fit to this system, because he will not be good. And we saw that. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot out there, though. I don't even know where you start to go get a guy at receiver. What do? You just throw offers out there, and the first one to bite, you take it. It's just great. What do you think about receiver, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, we know they will add someone. At least Coach Manning said a few weeks ago they would add one. That can change, obviously, but he said flat out in the scrum that they're looking to add another receiver. But this is and this is what I want to get your guys' opinion on, because this is interesting, because obviously we're in this transfer portal era. It's going to happen. You have to get used to it. But there's also that like you've built this camaraderie through not just spring ball, but when you look at this receiver class, outside of Jaden Richardson, who hit the portal and fall from Tufts, Kyron Hudson is the elder statesman as a junior. And it's all young guys that have all come up together. When you look at the Zachariah Brants, the Jacoby Lanes, they've come up together through the program so far. And so it's almost that weird dynamic. If you bring a kid in now who's a junior or a senior that wants to come in and be a top dog, does that throw off the chemistry with the room? And obviously, you want to think of the program and winning, but it's that weird dynamic that you have to think about of we need, okay, if we can get this talent that can be wide receiver 1, great, like we got Jordan Addison 2 years ago, and he clearly was wide receiver 1 and one of the top transfers of this program in this era. But also, is that going to, if we do that again, does that diminish what are starting to build between Miller Moss and Jacoby Lane and Zachariah Branch and these guys? So I'm not saying that's the case. I just wanted to more put that out in discussion. Like, what's your guys' thought on that?
It's kind of like baseball, and baseball in September, the roster expands. So it goes from a 40-man roster, like you could have all 40 in your dugout, and then you bring in these new guys and trade deadline. So like your team could be really, really hot, and all of a sudden you bring in this new star player. And then normally you see that team kind of dive a little bit around the trade deadline, and then they come right back up. The question is, does the character fit with the locker room? And the reason why, what's up, Tim? Still waiting for that. I'm still waiting for that invite. Just
as am I. You know?
I'm waiting for that invite, Tim. Here's the question: is are these young guys at receiver mature enough to have a leadership role to let an older guy know, like, this is how we do things, and if it doesn't work, you can leave, and it might end up being like that. So you have to fit in to get in to be a receiver at USC. You know what I mean? And I think, and we were in the press conference and I asked him the questions, and you saw that look in Kieran Barr's face. He was like, we're about this. Like, this is going to change for us. He said it. This is going to change for us, and we only want people who want to be here. He had that look in his eye. And so I think he's the one that's going to be the leader in the receiver room, and he's going to tell the transfer, this is how we do it. If you don't like it, you could go. We could easily find another one of you because we have this thing called the transfer portal. But these are our guys. This is how we do it. Fit in or go somewhere else. I think championship teams lead themselves. So this is a great example for a championship team to start to lead themselves and please themselves and go on the right trajectory. Jamal, what do you have on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point that Ryan brought up, because there's a couple of parameters you got to look at this. One is chemistry, to Ryan's point. Jacoby and Mackay and Deuce to a lesser extent, and Branch, they're all they went through the Holiday Bowl experience together. They've gone through spring practice together. They're growing, they're learning together. Do you want to disrupt that chemistry? Number one. Number two, by bringing somebody else in, you're also kind of indicating to them that maybe they're not good enough. So there's a double-edged sword there where you're always sort of emphasizing competition, but you want to be very delicate there because these are younger kids on the younger side, that if you're kind of sending that message that, hey, we don't have enough in this room, are you risking disengaging them? And I think this is, again, another example where it's very important that you don't just go carte blanche. You don't just look at a kid's measurables in the portal, his size, his weight, his 40 time, number of receptions, number of yards, number of touchdowns. I think you have to be very intentional about, we're very happy with what our receiver room is. If we were to add a depth piece, where are we potentially lacking in that room, just in terms of a skill set perspective? And I think for me, one area is kind of that true slot guy, like the true 6, 7, 8 yard guy, the guy who's going to kind of get open, eat up some yards. Because when you think about Jacoby Lane, you think about big catch radius, sort of a more refined route tree. You think about Branch as the game breaker. You think about Mackay Lemon as this sort of do-it-all, almost Swiss Army knife. You think of Deuce Robinson as this hybrid wide receiver tight end. Where is this group maybe lacking just a little bit? Pure slot guy, and maybe a kid that enjoys blocking a little bit more of that Taj Washington skill set. Mm-hmm. If you can find that, then I think it makes a lot of sense. And then I think the embracing of these young kids from a chemistry standpoint will be stronger. They'll understand the logic of why the kid's coming in, and it becomes a lot more holistic. If you're just going to go get another athlete and say, hey, just go in there and compete with these kids, I think that's when you start potentially disrupting chemistry. You start disrupting culture from a trust standpoint. So I think I would be very mindful here. Again, offensive line, defensive line, take the vast majority of priority in my mind. But if you can find that kind of wiggle slot guy that can kind of get open 6 to 8 yards and is a really good blocker, that's the one fit. But again, it comes down to that filter.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a great way to put it. And I think of one of my favorite movies of all time is Miracle. You guys, I'm sure, have seen it. The great 1980 USA hockey movie. And there's that scene. They go through all their training. This is obviously different. Like, it's not the same reality, but it pertains a little bit. Like, they go through all their training, their blood, sweat, and tears they put in. And then Herb Brooks brings in this guy. I can't remember his last name, but they call him Timmy. His first name's Timmy. In from like University of Minnesota or whatever, brings him in late. And he's like, all right, we're adding him to the roster, and they still haven't done their final cuts. And the team's like, well, who's this guy? Like, we can't just bring this guy in out of nowhere. And like, we're a family now. We're a family. They pull Herb Brooks off the bus at one point and tell him, like, you can't do this to us. We're a family. Like, no one else is leaving. Like, you got to send this kid home. And Herb Brooks says, all right, Timmy would have made us better, but I'm sending him home because of this family. So, I mean, I just wonder if that's a thought process of like, this is a group that is built. I still think there's a way they can add in Jamal. I think that's absolutely the approach. I've seen a couple people mention it in here. But the CSU kid, Justice Ross Simmons, like 6'2", 210, like could potentially be that slot guy that fits. Yep. He's from Inglewood, local kid, went to Inglewood High School. And so I think that could be a fit. Do you guys remember? I don't want to say last guy because I haven't done research, but just to my knowledge, the last Colorado State transfer to USC was?
You know the answer. I wouldn't know.
Yes, I know the answer. Yes.
Let's call it Frosty Rucker.
Frosty Rucker.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
Really?
Yeah.
Frosty went to Colorado State first?
Yeah, Tustin High, but they went to Colorado State and then came back home to USC. Upgraded. So maybe Justice Ross Simmons is the next Colorado State Ram to join the USC ranks.
Wow. Okay. Good job, Pete. Pete had the portable four because you remember Lofa Tutupu went to like a small like Maine or something like that.
Yeah.
Being really good.
I think it was Maine. Yeah.
Pete created the portal before the portal was even a thing.
The original we had to sit out a year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at Justin Ross Simmons' film. He's not a blazer, but he is a slot. He gets open and he makes contested passes. He's actually they have him 205, 6'3", 205. That's a big slot. That's a big slot. Inverted, yeah, but he's not going to beat you with speed. He's kind of like Brandon Rice a little bit, size-wise. Looking at his film, but he's not as fast as Brandon Wright. But he could catch.
I mean, Cooper Kupp's what, 6'2", 210? I mean, and he's not blazing fast, and he's the best slot receiver in the NFL.
I mean, we've got smaller guys in the room. I've been kind of looking at the comments as well. Obviously, Branch is a smaller guy. Lemon is a smaller guy. So I get there. We've got guys that are built like slot guys, but Branch with that blazing speed, you don't want to stifle him in the slot. Makai Lemon also, I think they're still trying to figure out where he is. But if you recall in the Holiday Bowl, all his catches were on the outside, kind of 20-yard seam routes. So I don't really think of Lemon as your true slot. I think you need a guy that's really going to be that stabilizing for 2nd and 13, 3rd and 3. The guy that's going to get you those yards inside, outside. Kind of like a Logan Loya, UCLA, a Wes Welker type. That's really what we're looking for in a guy who's going to mix it up in terms of blocking. I think that's what's missing a little bit. I think Lane is the big body. I think if Lane is everything that I believe that he will be, he's going to be that big body contested catch guy, and Deuce has the body for that as well. But I think it's kind of in that true slot blocking element as well. I think we could fortify.
Yeah,
they said Jacoby Lane is killing spring ball right now.
Oh yeah.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
He's just killing spring ball right now. So that's good. Hey, Ryan,
and go ahead. Your roommates, if you didn't know that.
No. I did not know that. That'd be fine. Ryan, go ahead and say what you want to say, and then transfer over to the. Your computer's doing its thing again.
Oh, no,
the aliens are coming.
My camera likes to turn off after like 45 minutes.
All right, go dark, and then when you come back, you said you wanted to talk about NIL. So go ahead and say what you were going to say, and then what were you going to say about NIL?
Did I want to talk about NIL? I don't remember.
You did earlier. You said, "Well, yeah, let's talk about NIL later."
I don't remember that, but
all right. Well, never mind. Forget it then. That's all I have.
I'll say what I was going to say. All I was going to say, which I don't know why my camera's doing this, but here, let me switch. Let me just switch to this camera for now.
Can you guys send some donations so we can get Ryan a new camera?
I have a great camera. I just, for whatever reason, it's like when you use it as a webcam, it turns off. Now this camera just makes me look like I'm in a 150-degree room.
Send some of those super chats.
It's there's some mood lighting going on now, you know?
Yeah. Now it's my actual like laptop camera.
Yeah.
No, the only thing last thing I was gonna say is like, and coach, you'll remember this from playing, but like the old days was the slot receiver was a type, like body type. Like it was like under 5'9". I mean, Jamal mentioned it. Wes Welker, these guys, like I was a slot receiver. Obviously, I'm only 5'7" or whatever. Like that was the body
Don
type.
Beebe.
Slot. What?
Don Beebe.
Yeah. But nowadays it's different. Tyreek Hill's an outside receiver. Tyreek Hill's tiny, but he's an outside burner. And so anyway, I was just reiterating that you don't necessarily have to be smaller in stature to play slot.
We talk about Branch. I don't want to. We talk about Branch all the time. We're just saying that Zach Branch is not a slot. Zach Branch is a take the top off, multi-athlete burner. Like just signaling, put him in the slot wouldn't do any good. Like he could be a slot, outside, running back, everything. We were more talking about a true slot receiver that SC's kind of missing. That's why we weren't talking about
Blanche's like slot presence is when he's doing those quick 2-yard outs that he can just turn the top off. Like he just quick from the slot, get the ball as almost like a jet sweep in a way. But yeah, he's not, I don't see him. Maybe we'll see it this year, but I don't see him doing those, Cooper Kupp, like 4-yard dig routes in the slot. Like that's not his MO.
And, you're going to line him up in the backfield some. And honestly, I mean, I think from a usage standpoint, Branch and Lane are going to be wide receivers 1 and 2. So Branch is a massive piece of this offense.
You guys are still sleeping. You guys still are sleeping on Mekhi Lemon. I don't know. I guess I'm still.
I love him.
Man,
I love him too.
Man, Mekhi's gonna have a hell of a year.
I love this receiving core. That's why it's they're going to bring someone in, but I'm like I'm not like concerned like they need to because I like this core. It's just who's going to take the.
And then how many do they have coming in 24 and 25? They have like 4 coming in the next 2 years, right?
Let me double check. I think only 1 in this 24 class.
Okay.
Yeah, Xavier Jordan is the only one in this 24 class.
At 25, they have 2, if I'm not mistaken, or were those DBs? They're DBs. Never mind. I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I can double check.
Jeff is saying Lemon is our slot guy.
I could see that. I know Jamal
is a very versatile receiver. I think you can do a lot with him. I think I need to see more evidence of him being a true, to Ryan's point, kind of that slot tree route. I think Lemon is just an interesting body type, but we sort of lined him up out wide a lot. But he's sort of a bigger kid too. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see Lemon. It wouldn't surprise me if he's able to step into that slot role, which is also to the point you don't need somebody in this receiving core. Yeah. What we're saying is it's just got to be the right fit. I think you could sort of fortify at the slot position, bring somebody in to potentially even push Lemon. And, best man win from a slot perspective, Lemon could very well win. But I think if you're looking just sort of holistically at the receiving group, A, you have to recognize you don't need to add much of anything. And B, whatever you need to do, you need to focus on skill set rather than on player. And that's really where the mentality needs to be.
I will tell you guys this too. I think we're getting too hung up in saying slot. There's no true, like Ryan said, there's no true slot anymore because when you run 10 personnel and you run 2x2 and 10 personnel, you have 2 slots. So who are your 2 slots, right? Because you got 2 inside receivers. You run 10 personnel, you go 3x1, you technically got 2 slots on the same side, right? Because you're in trips, either trade trips or whatever it is. Like we're getting too hung up on per se a slot receiver. I think, and a lot of coaches do it, inside receiver. We need an inside receiver. And so whatever the inside receiver role is in Lincoln Riley's offense, I think they need to look for that. We don't necessarily need a slot. Slot is a kind of thing of a pass. It's more of an inside receiver because they call it a slot fade because the inside receiver runs the fade, which they do call slot fade, but there's more inside receiver stuff. So you could see Branch inside, outside, right? Lemon, I think Lemon was playing on the outside in the Holiday Bowl. Lemon is going to be an outside guy, but check this out. Lemon could also play Lemon isn't far off from Branch athletically, and don't go crazy. I'm not saying he's not far off. This is what I'm saying. Lemon could play outside. He could play slot, and Lemon could also play running back. Branch could play outside. Branch could play slot. Branch could also play running back. You get what I'm saying? Like, they're not far off skill set wise. So that would be a good combination. So we don't need a true slot. We need more of two good inside receivers. Does that make it better? Maybe if I explain the X and O's wise, that made it sound a little bit better. You guys know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. So, excitement either way. But yeah,
absolutely.
What else you got to add? We can wrap up this live. It's been so much fun. Had like 180 people in here. This has been great. So appreciate everyone. But yeah,
everybody tell your friends. Ryan said if we average 300 every time we do a live, we'll consistently do it. So we got to start getting 300 people. This is our first show. This is the pilot. I think we did good for the pilot. Don't you agree, Jamal? 180 for the pilot?
I do. I only have one condition. I want Ryan to start wearing shirts like this every time we go live. That's my only request. That's it.
I gotta get more then.
We got to get them the golf shirts. What is you guys? What is the golf shirt name? They have like Fred Flintstone and things like that. We're gonna just send a bunch to Ryan's house, and he's gonna have to wear them every.
I would rock a Fred Flintstone golf shirt. Hell yeah, absolutely.
Well, we know what he rocked in Vegas for Radio Row. I mean, we kind of get a sense of Ryan's style, you know. So
I'm mad that I left that shirt in the hotel. I don't know why I didn't bring that with me.
Oh man,
so many compliments. Compliments.
You were the best dressed guy at Radio Row. It was unbelievable.
Tim, I'm waiting for my invite, and I just have to say this since Tim is watching. I'm waiting for my invite, and we need to call that dude back from Michigan because I called back in, and I was going to get after him. I had stats pulled up and everything. I was going to get after him. Like, Michigan's 2-4 lifetime against USC, and the last one was in 1988. Like, let's be for real. Like, anyway, I'm about to go on a tangent. That dude had me fired up. Anyway, fellas, it's been fun. Guys, I appreciate you guys for watching. This is something we're experimenting on right now. If you guys like it, maybe we'll go live once a week, but we need more of you guys to do it. Make it worth it. We love talking to you guys. We love seeing your comments. And most of all, we love your fans. Jamal, Ryan, we got another one in the book. This time it's for real. So all my mistakes are not edited. All my mistakes are not edited. They get to see how much I really messed up when we record.
I don't think you messed up at all. I mean, at least your camera didn't die like mine.
Yeah, that's true. But it was fun. You have fun, Jamal?
Oh, when do I not?
Thank you. Oh, did you guys have fun? Leave it in the comments if you guys have fun. If you guys want to do this, if you guys want us to do this every Monday, you guys got to convince the man in the top corner right here, Ryan Dyro. We should do this at least once a week and make this going. Other than that, I appreciate you guys for coming. Ryan, Jamal, we got another one in the book. Thank you. This has been the live broadcast of the Bet Online Salute to Troy podcast. You guys know how it goes. Live free. Fight on. Thank y'all.
Thanks, everyone.